Now, there have been empires built and movies sold about the quest for eternal youth, but many people are now expected to live well into their 90s and way beyond.
So how would a 100-year life change the way that you think about work, relationships, health and just your lifespan generally? Well, some have suggested we're seeing a rise in juvenescence, or growing young. To discuss the 100-year life, we're joined by performance coach Andrew May. Andrew, good morning.
Good morning. We're going to go to hip-hop lessons later today. It's quite funny, isn't it?
Yeah, no, not really. What's the evidence for the 100-year life? What are we seeing?
Yeah, Professor Linda Grattan from the London School of Business and also Andrew Scott have written a book called The 100-Year Life, and they hypothesise that life is going to change dramatically. You know, we used to get to 65, 70 and retire, but the average lifespan, it's increasing 2 to 3 years per decade. So in Australia now, the average male will live to 80.1 years. Females, it's 84.3. A few reasons around that. I think more so women tend to look after themselves better. But you think if we're going to live to around 90, how does that change the way we live, the way we work? How does that even change the way we look at life?
Yes, and we can bring up some of the key issues there on the screen. We are talking about adding entirely new stages of life. As Virginia mentioned earlier, you might not go to university until you're 40 and things like that.
There's some parents at home just going, oh my goodness, I'm not going to get my kids out until I'm 40.
They're going to be there for that long.
But Mike, we used to have 3 stages. You know, we'd study, go to school, uni, then we'd get a job and then we'd retire. So the authors propose there's this 18 to 30-year-old stage that rather than, you know, getting a job or a trade, go and travel, go and adventure. And why not have a gap year at, so, you know, we used to have gap years at 18.
Yes.
Have a gap year at 40 or have a gap year at 55.
It's such a hugely interesting and complicated area because it brings in, as you say, a simple, you know, biomechanical reality that we are living longer, but also other elements, you know, social elements, economic elements as well. The fact that young people are having this extended adolescence, which, you know, feeds into your theory of different lifespans. But I don't know if mentally we've sort of caught up with those great differences yet.
Yeah, and it's true. And one of the big advancements is going to be in what we do with the brain. So we know the body's living longer, but we don't want to live longer medicated. So a friend of my mum's recently said, it was my mum, she had quite a large birthday, and she said, I have to get up half an hour early to take all my pills. And she said, when I walk up steps, it sounds like I've swallowed Tic Tacs. We don't want that. Yeah, so we want to live longer, healthier, and then, look, we might even do another segment on that down the track, but there is some interesting stuff happening around the brain, everything from neurotropics, you know, smart drugs, to how do we get the body to, the brain to keep up with the body.
Yeah, and how do you aim to keep fit in your 60s, 70s, even 80s?
Yeah, and look, we've spoken a lot about fitness over the last couple of years, and when you think if I'm going to go to 90, and I'm not going to get to 60 and then go into a paddock and just fade out, so 40 and 50 and 60, we've got to move regularly. And another thing about body and brain, there's so much research now, this neurogenesis, that physical activity makes you smarter. So, and look, I'm a jock by trade. I love sport. We often talk about that.
And you're very smart, Andrew.
I'm smarter, thank you. But we're actually getting people, you know, exercise keeps the brain going as well.
There's clearly also, though, we've discussed this on the program before, going to be an economic reality for those who can afford to live that long. If you can afford to get your knees replaced, if you can afford the really good quality pacemaker as opposed to the pacemaker that the funded health system will give you. All those elements and those sort of fine refinements of what great access you're going to get to the healthcare system that allows you to live longer, I think is going to be a big issue.
You said to me before we went on air, how are we going to fund this? You know, how are we going to live until 80, 90 and beyond? But the other thing it makes us think about is planning for retirement and funding. So if we used to sort of work until 65 or 70, I was driving along in my car recently and my daughter asked one of those beautiful questions that kids ask, and it was, Dad, with an inflection, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I'm sort of driving along, and Professor Linda Grattan had been here. We'd just done a speaking gig together. And I thought, like, I'm 43, so I'm 43% there if we go to 100. And I said, darling, what do you want to do? She said, oh, look, I'd like to be a hairdresser or a school teacher. And I said, look, they're great jobs. School teachers are wonderful, and I've heard hairdressers are good.
And you'll get to do both.
Yeah,
you'll get to have several careers now.
Tell us about juvenescence.
I thought you'd like this one. So juvenescence is the act of growing younger. Now, we often see a middle-aged male.
We've got some examples there on the screen.
I love that picture. And some people.
Is that your mum and dad, Andrew?
No, I don't think so, but I could be you and I, Mike, in a couple of years down the track. This used to be called a midlife crisis, an MLC. I think now we're calling it, you know, a hashtag juvenescence. So there's a whole lot of men out there wearing clothes they shouldn't. We've all got that, mate.
Wearing lycra they shouldn't.
Lycra, but you know when you see a mate of yours wears clothes and you go, these should should be for your son.
Yeah.
For all those guys out there and all those dads, now there's a word, juvenescence, which means the act of feeling young is good for body and brain.
And we need to remove the word shouldn't. You should wear whatever the hell you want and forget the age limitations that others impose. Hey, Andrew, really good to see you this morning. Thanks for stopping by. You kicked off, I suspect, a really interesting conversation this morning, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.